Hello everyone, I'm Aninda Miranti from the University of Indonesia. In this opportunity, I would like to present my research paper under the supervision of my lecturer, Master Santriadi, with the title Trading Behavior in Indonesia Stock Exchange Before and During the COVID-19 Pandemic. First of all, I would like to say thank you for Asian Network Scholar for organizing this conference. Next part is introduction. The coronavirus disease 19 or COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a global financial crisis, impacted the world's capital market, causing the stock market to be very volatile and unpredictable. The COVID-19 pandemic causing an irrational panic reaction that had a material impact which triggered a decline in the stock market in 51 countries, including Indonesia, due to concern over risks and uncertainty in the future. Interestingly, during the COVID-19 pandemic condition, the number of capital market investors in Indonesia increased by 55.83% at the end of 2020. But national survey results show that the financial literacy index doesn't follow the financial inclusion index increase. The literacy level in the capital market sector is the lowest compared to other financial service sectors. This is interesting to research because many studies have found that volatility in the stock market is caused by investor emotion and behavior, such as herding behavior. Herding behavior is the behavior of investors who ignore their information and beliefs to follow a group of investors' behavior, even though irrelevant fundamental details do not support them. Herding behavior is often related to the crisis condition, which tempts investors to follow market euphoria and feel safer to follow others. Previous research has shown that herding behavior exists in the market stress condition of financial crises such as subprime mortgage and unstable condition. When the herding phenomenon lasts for a long time and the market fails to reflect a reasonable stock price condition, this behavior will cause stock price volatility and lead to market instability. In Indonesia, research on herding behavior shows inconsistent results in both normal and crisis periods. Considering the COVID-19 pandemic condition is a crisis condition, Indonesia has a high number of investors but with a low literacy level, and there is a tendency to follow current investors because they considering experience. This study aims to detect and compare herding behavior before and during the COVID-19 pandemic in the affected and unaffected sectors by the COVID-19 pandemic. This research is expected to contribute the capital market regulator in educating investors and potential investors, establishing the right policies, and conducting supervision to maintain the stability of Indonesian capital market. The next part, we move to literature review. Herding behavior is the behavior of investors who often follow expert advice, follow decisions made by other investors, or follow movement in the market rather than following their belief, judgment, and information. There are things that are basis for the practice of herding behavior, including information-based herding and cascades, reputation-based herding, and compensation-based herding. The information-based herding is based on the understanding that investors tend to follow other investor decisions by examining previous investor actions through cascades. It considers others to have adequate information and doubts about the quality of publicly available information. In reputation-based herding, investor or investment manager follow another player to hide their competences or skill. In compensation-based herding, the existence of information asymmetry between the agent and the principal, resulting in the agent first benchmarking the decision of other agents because the compensation that the agent will receive will be measured based on the average performance of other agents. Trading behavior can create stock prices away from their fundamental value, exacerbate the level of volatility, and create market instability. The condition before the COVID-19 pandemic can be classified as normal because the composite stock price index increases from 2016 to 2017 and tends to be stable in 2017 until 2019. Previous research found that herding behavior exists before crisis periods in Vietnam, by Fo and Fan, a normal period in Greece and Italy, and in Indonesia. The condition due to the COVID-19 pandemic can be categorized as a crisis condition because COVID-19 has impacted capital markets around the world, where capital markets have become volatile, unpredictable, and have substantially led to a decline in the stock market. Herding behavior is expected to be more pronounced during periods of extreme market conditions, which are characterized by increased uncertainty and significant market fluctuation. Under stressful market conditions, fear and panic can arise in the market, and as a result, market participants tend to follow market consensus. Previous research proves that herding behavior exists during a crisis period in Indonesia by Gunawan Wijayanto and Rahman when 2011, Valian 2017. In other countries, like in the United States during the subprime mortgage crisis, the debt crisis in Europe, and the stock market crisis in China 2015. In Pakistan during 2008 crisis and subprime mortgage crisis enhanced herding behavior in Taiwan stock market. Herding behavior was found during the COVID-19 pandemic in another countries such as in National Stock Exchange of India, Taiwan, and Vietnam, and in Australia. This research defined two periods to compare herding behavior before and during pandemic COVID-19 as follows. First, the period before pandemic COVID-19 is from January 1st to December 31st. And the second, the pandemic COVID-19 period is from March 2nd to December 31st. The sample used in the study were the affected sector consists of transportation, food and beverage, tourism, restaurant, and hotel. Second, unaffected sector by the COVID-19 pandemic such as health and telecommunication. This research applies the cross-sectional absolute deviation method developed by Chang, Cheng, and Corana to measure herding behavior. Based on value and when and tone, we use value-weighted cross-sectional absolute deviation as follows, where RET is daily return on stock I at time t, RMT is market return, WIP is the ratio of market capitalization of stock I, and the total market capitalization is value K minus 1. To examine the existence of herding behavior, then we'll do a regression of the model as follows. In the presence of herding, there is a nonlinear relationship to so that the value of gamma 2 will be negatively significant. Next, discussion and conclusion. As we can see in the tab 1 summary of regression result in different periods. In the period before the COVID-19 pandemic, the entire sample showed evidence of existing herding behavior. This evidence was conducted by the negative significance of coefficient gamma 2, which shows a nonlinear relationship between CSAD and market returns. More specifically, the telecommunication sector is appear to have a significant negative coefficient of gamma 2. It shows an existence of herding behavior. The telecommunications sector is usually regarded as a sector with monopolistic power to have low competition. So there is an indication that investors follow the strategies of other investors who use the information on the performance of stocks in that sector, which tends to be more stable in their decision making. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the coefficient of gamma 2 was negative insignificant. It shows that generally the herding behavior did not occur during the COVID-19 pandemic period. The reason could be there was an increase in investor risk aversion due to the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic. Bernardzi and Thaler stated that the increasing risk aversion causes investors to avoid potential losses and investors over-evaluate their portfolios. During the COVID-19 pandemic period, we can see that the transportation sector has a negative significant coefficient of gamma 2. It shows the existence of herding behavior. Herding behavior that occurs in the transportation sector can be seen as an anomaly. Cases Sylvanus and Donadeli 2021 stated that the existence of travel restriction was proven to cause herding behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic. This travel restriction also occur in Indonesia. For example, travel restriction in Indonesia on April 24, 2020. Information on this restriction impacts the company's stock return with a significant market capitalization in the transportation sectors. It indicates the possibility of panic selling by investors causing a decrease in the stock return. This panic selling due to travel restriction is one of the indications of herding behavior in these sectors. The profile of capital market can cause differences in herding behavior between two different periods, such as the periods before pandemic COVID-19 and during COVID-19 pandemic. In the Indonesian capital market in 2019, the majority of stock investors were dominated by institutional investors at 79.76%, while in Salmon state that institutional investors tends to hurt when market conditions are stable, and institutional investors avoid herding behavior during the crisis period, as stated by Kombalasari 2016. Thus, this institutional investor indicates that the cause herding behavior in the period before the COVID-19 pandemic. From the discussion above, we can conclude that herding behavior exists before the pandemic COVID-19 but disappears during the COVID-19 pandemic due to increasing investor risk aversion due to the uncertainty. In sectoral scope, herding behavior was found only in telecommunications sector before the COVID-19 pandemic and in the transportation sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. That is all for me. Thank you and have a nice day.